What's up, everyone? My name's Adam McDormand, and this is Medium Quality. I want to take you guys back in time a little bit to an album that absolutely blew my mind in 2005. Coheed Cambria's absurdly titled Good Apollo on Burning Star 4, Volume 1, From Fear Through the Eyes of Madness. I want to start off by admitting that there is basically no chance of me giving any sort of objective, unbiased review of this album because it holds such a special place in my heart. And it comes from a very important time in musical discovery for me personally. So take everything that I say after this with a grain of salt. I have always thought that the mid-2000s was a really special and important time for alternative or underground music for a number of reasons. One of the biggest of which is the onset of cable or high-speed internet. And that represented just this massive disruption to the traditional music distribution system, which was a monolith. It meant that the barrier between new musical acts and the major record labels was narrowing. That gave rise to a lot of indie record labels being agile enough to leverage websites like MySpace and Pure Volume and a number of other music distribution sites to find new ears. And of course, at that time, all of the cool kids of the mainstream were still getting this carefully curated drip of new music from, niche music channels like MTV2 and Fuse, the channels that your rich friends had included in their expensive satellite television packages. And it seemed like the bands that only my friends and I knew about in 2004 were mainstream. All of a sudden in 2005, just a year later, they were showing up on Total Request Live with Carson Daly. It was a heady time, to be sure. But while all of this disruption in the music industry was making it much easier for people to find new sounds, there was still this growing nostalgia for classic rock among people roughly my age. The whole classic rock revival thing was very much something that was taking place in the mainstream. You had bands like The Darkness and Jet and The Vines and Franz Ferdinand and 100 other bands that wanted to make this straight-ahead rock and roll. And then, of course, you had video games like Guitar Hero and Rock Band that were taking these classic rock songs that kids had never listened to before and putting them right alongside the new stuff that was on MTV. And it really cemented the importance of big riff classic rock in people of my generation. And all of that to say that Coheed Cambria was uniquely suited to take advantage of the musical climate of the time because of the fact that their sound is really a fusion of big riff classic rock and this kind of punk rock emo thing that was still happening in the underground at the time. And so that was 2005. That was the world into which Coheed Cambria birthed this album. Let's talk about some of the songs on this album, though. The album opens with a song called Keeping the Blade. Now, if you'd listened to Coheed Cambria's two previous albums, Second Stage Turbine Blade and In Keeping Secrets of Silent Earth 3, you know that it's very much a part of the Coheed Cambria album experience to start with an instrumental track. The basic melody of the song is actually a reference to both of the two opening tracks from their previous work. So if you'd listen to those and you recognize this song, only the production value is much higher. There's clearly use of real strings as opposed to synthesized strings, which really kind of sets the stage for this entire album. It's very much a perfection of what they had been doing before. Then we get to the first full song on the album, Always and Never, which is this almost sweetly morose acoustic ballad that's about killing people. Classic Coheed Cambria. That song rolls right into what is the first really big song on the album, Welcome Home, which is this big rock and roll song with some gigantic riffs that are backed by more actual strings. And of course you have songs like 10 Speed of God's Blood and Burial and Apollo 1, The Riding Rider, which are songs that bounce back and forth between these really musically interesting, sinister sounding verses and then these kind of bouncy, listenable choruses that almost beg for a sing-along. And all of that is packed into just the first side of the album. Side 1 does an almost perfect job of mixing these really disparate musical influences in a way that's interesting and also somehow accessible at the same time. Now, like I said, it's going to be really difficult for me to be objective about this album because 2005 Adam was almost obsessed with Good Apollo. But 2017 Adam thinks that some of the interesting ideas that were present on side 1 of the album start to wear a little thin on side 2. You have songs like Once Upon Your Dead Body and The Lying Lies and Dirty Secrets of Miss Erica Court and Mother May I that all follow a pretty similar song structure. All of those songs have really interesting ideas in the verses, but then move into these really straightforward choruses that are probably heavily influenced by the kind of a pop punk tradition. And there's nothing wrong with that. They're not bad songs, but they just don't quite, in my mind, hold up next to the best work on the album. I mean, it's a great album, and it's hard for these songs to keep pace with that. Side 3 and 4 of this album consist of this 30-minute, 4-part epic called The Willing Well, which is easily the crowning achievement of this album. This 4-part epic culminates with The Willing Well Part 4, The Final Cut, which is the last track on the album. It's this massive blues-inspired jam of multiple guitar solos and extended jams that slowly break down and devolve into silence. And of course, it wouldn't be a Coheed Cambria album if there weren't some sort of hidden track at the end. And this album's no different, obviously. It ends with this folksy, bluegrassy kind of jam at the end, and then it's over. It's Good Apollo on Burning Star 4, Volume 1, From Fear to the Eyes of Madness. Oh, hold on, wait a second. Okay, I clearly did not do a very good job of articulating just how masterfully Coheed Cambria put together The Willing Well. That last epic is so well done. It's full of a lot of really interesting progressive rock stylings. It's just a great song, and I gave it short shrift in this video. So if there's anything that you should check out from this album, it's definitely that last set of tracks. Basically, this whole album was a huge deal for me. I was a big fan of progressive rock, and I was a big fan of punk and emo, and never did those two things ever meet. But somehow, this one band managed to take those two separate musical philosophies and put them together in a way that actually worked. It blew my mind. And it's easy to look back on that album now and say, yeah, people have done that better. But at the time, it was something really special. It was fresh, it was new, it changed the way that I thought about writing music. Up until this year, Good Apollo has never been available on vinyl. And so it's awesome that it's finally been remastered for vinyl and released, although in limited quantities. I actually managed to get my hands on the Record Store Day exclusive version of this album, which is this really gorgeous, colored splatter pressing. And it's been a lot of fun to revisit this album that I have such fond memories of. But don't worry if you didn't get your hands on a copy of the album earlier. It's actually getting a wider release at the end of June. Pre-orders are already up on Amazon in the US, and I'm sure that it's going to get more wide distribution in the local record shops. So sit tight, you'll be able to get it soon enough. And if any of that has you excited, I highly recommend that you go out and pick up a copy of Coheed Cambria's Good Apollo on Burning Star 4, Volume 1, From Fear to the Eyes of Madness. I can't believe I just said it. I got it right. What a time to be alive.
Hey now, what is it, boy? All the things that trouble you.